welcome back to my channel. This is the Red Project, where we talk about cultural analysis, philosophy, creativity, and avoiding burnout, amongst other things that interest me. I'm Red. I consider myself to be a polymath, but my areas of expertise are graphic design, illustration, branding, and cultural analysis. Heavily on cultural analysis. And today we are in a very expected video. I've gotten comments from you asking for this video, so here it is. I'm super excited about this video because it's one of my favorite topics ever. So let's get into it. This is episode 4 of my 5 essay series on how to be a cool girl. Episode 1 was on being tryhards, episode 2 was on creating more than we consume, episode 3 was on going analog, and this is episode 4, research as a hobby. I love research. I have some resources right here for you. I have my script here for you too. I have my file of facts, which I mention in every single video, and I think that's it. I think that's all I need, so let's get into it. As always, I'm going to divide the video in different chapters so that you can skip through them or go back and forth as you wish. The first chapter is going to be the everlasting learning process, where I talk a little bit about curiosity and how we as humans never really stop learning. Then gardening knowledge, which is a topic I mentioned earlier, but I'm gonna expand on it, on gardening knowledge and digital gardens and analog gardens. And then finally tips on gardening before the conclusion, where I wrap everything up and make a summarized version of the video. So if you don't have the time, you can either go to my TikTok or Instagram, where I post these videos but in short form, or you can just skip to the conclusion and you will find basically everything that I talk about but summarized. Let's get into it. I'm super excited. By the way, I need a moment to shout out my makeup because I think it's gorgeous. Back to the video. So, part 1, the everlasting learning process. I want to begin by talking about school, which is where we are supposed to learn the most information from. In school, we call questions problems, and we are taught to solve them. This is a framework that I personally hate, because questions are not problems. Questions are not something to be solved, but to go down the rabbit hole and ask more questions. You're not taught in school to ask more questions, but to solve the ones that you already have. So that's one thing about our learning system that teaches us to not be curious, but to be problem solving. I'm gonna ditch that. Ask questions. Ask questions like it's not a problem. Also, I want to talk about the difference between sciences and humanities, because many people disregard humanities and humanities studies like cultural analysis, literature, art history, etc. Why? Because sciences take a question and they answer it, while humanities take a question and ask another question. Humanities are not here to make your life easier. Sciences are. Sciences are meant to solve problems, while humanities create new problems. Philosophy creates new problems, and they remain unsolved because it's up to you. Mainly, there are different theories here and there, but in conclusion, it's up to you, it's up to the user. So that's a big difference between sciences and humanities, and why humanities are oftentimes disregarded as not useful, because they are not meant to be useful. They are not meant to have a use other than to expand your knowledge and to keep asking yourself more and more questions. Also, I think that's why humanities are called humanities, because they make us human. Asking questions make us human. If we didn't ask any questions and we just lived our lives solving problems and living, like eating, sleeping, having relationships and all that, we would be like any other animal. I will talk more about humans being animals and to connect with our animal side, but that's for another video. Also, humanities... Oh, the light is lightning. I'm gonna try to fix this. Okay, I think I kind of did fix it. Anyways, I was talking. I call this chapter the everlasting learning process because you never run out of questions to ask. Like, never. Even in the sciences, you could think that things are a certain way, but unless you ask yourself why they are that way, you will never really truly know. We base our scientific knowledge on trust that what we have been told is true. For example, we know how colors work. You have seen the prism thing with the crystals and the Pink Floyd image. We all have seen that. We know how colors work, but have you ever tried it? Have you ever tried to grab a crystal and see the light split into different colors? Probably not. Maybe yes. And unless you see it for yourself, you are basing your knowledge on colors and how they work on trust that what you have been told is true. So there's always questions to ask. And I love that. Okay, so the following things I'm gonna talk about are not meant to make your life easier. This whole series on how to be a cool girl is not meant to make your life easier. It's meant to make your life more interesting and more human. Humans overcomplicate things. That's just a fact. That's just how we work. So yeah, this series is not meant to make your life easier. If what you want is to make your life easier, I don't recommend you to keep watching this because it's not the point. The point of this video is to make our lives more interesting and more whimsical and more human. So yeah. Second part, gardening knowledge. The first thing I want to talk about is the super popular personal curriculums, which is something that has been around for the last year and a half approx. And it's really interesting for highly curious people because, for example, I get sidetracked a lot, and personal curriculums are basically like a list of subjects that you want to study with a list of resources for each subject. So it's like a normal university course, but you do it yourself. Like you personalize it to your liking. And I find it really interesting because when I don't know what to research, or when I get sidetracked and I don't know where I am, I get lost in my rabbit holes, I can refer back to my subject list and I know what to study. So personal curriculums are kind of cool, and I wanted to touch on them a little bit. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to talk about gardening knowledge. So I don't know if you've heard or not about the term of a digital garden. It's quite popular online, but maybe it it's just in my side of internet and not yours, I don't know. So I will tag some resources in the description. But digital gardening, to summarize it, is basically picking seeds of information, putting them into a catalog or a database, and connecting them with one another so that you have this network of knowledge that you can later on go back to and refer to and work with in research areas. I'm gonna make an example of how I use my digital garden. I use it in Obsidian or Notion. Arena is also a great place for digital gardening. In my understanding of digital gardening, it's meant to be public. I think it's like a sort of blog that people can see, so Arena is one of those places where you can publish it and everyone can see it, but I'm not entirely sure if it's at the core of digital gardening or if it's just an optional thing that you can do. I don't publish mine. It's my garden. I keep it in with Obsidian mainly. So it's not really shareable, but yeah. But I want to expand this onto other areas, because as I talked in the previous video, going analog is really interesting from a creative point of view, and I try not to do things digitally. I try to do things as analogically as I can. So aside from a digital garden, I have a analog garden, and I talk about commonplace books. I mentioned commonplace books in the previous video as well, but I'm gonna expand more on commonplace books in this video because commonplace books are at the core of research as a hobby for me personally. So I'm gonna talk more about them. Yeah, I'm gonna talk more about them. Waiting for the cloud to pass again, because the stupid light is lightning. So the light isn't going anywhere, so I'm just gonna keep on rolling. Keep on rolling, baby.
Alright, partner. Keep on rolling, baby. You know what time it is.
Commonplace books are places where you write down everything. Every single thing. They have been around for a long time. It's also called a zettelkasten, if I'm not wrong. I don't know what language it is, maybe German. Zettelkasten. I'm gonna search it up. Zettelkasten or something like that. So a commonplace book or a zettelkasten is a place where you keep everything that you think, everything that your mind processes. You write it down or doodle it or paste it or do whatever you want to put it into your commonplace book. Okay, now on my tips on gardening and analog gardening. So this was my first commonplace book, volume 1. And I made some mistakes with this commonplace book that I'm going to talk about so that you can avoid them. And I made some good decisions with this commonplace book, which I will also talk about. So this format is interesting. Small portable notebook. It's the size of my phone, so I can put it in my pocket, I can put it in my purse, I can put it wherever. It doesn't weigh at all, so super handy, which is very important for a commonplace book. And also it's not the prettiest book you have seen, which is important, and I will talk more about it. Mistakes that I made. This was the first page. Pretty, isn't it? Well, fuck. That should not be pretty. The first page is very important to be ugly. The first pages need to be ugly. You can make pretty pages forward on, but the first pages need to be ugly. Why? Because if you make pretty pages from the beginning, you are going to be scared of ruining it. You're ruining it.
Oh man, you're just ruining it.
In the future, and you're just not gonna use it. I have loads and loads of pretty notebooks that I started and that I never finished because I am too scared to put a pen on paper. So the fact that it's ugly is perfect. I will link down oddly specific crystals video on why your notebook needs to be messy, because she explains it perfectly. But to sum it up, that's basically it. The expectation bar is too high if it's pretty, so try not to make it pretty. For example, I have this page, this spread, I never used because it was super cute and I ended up not using it ever. I did some good things. For example, this is how a commonplace book should look like. It has class materials, it has doodles, this is me in a phone. It has a little bit of everything. It has poetry, it has scribbles, like it needs to be ugly and messy. This is how a commonplace book should look like. This is another example, again with scribbles, with doodles, with class materials. It mixes things together and creates a beautiful garden, but analogically. Reasons why I recommend it. I recommend a small notebook because it's handy and it needs to be handy. You need to take it everywhere with you. It's cheap because you need to have a small notebook and an ugly notebook, so you can find them very cheaply. And it's easily categorizable because, as I said, you can just write volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. You put them in your library and you can see the progression. I don't recommend it for these reasons. First of all, many people are interested in having an index at the beginning of their commonplace books, and this is not, for example, I did a table of contents, and this is not a good idea with a notebook because you are never gonna be able to fit everything into an index. Again, you're not gonna be like page 96, a dream I had, page 73, my professor's email, page 41, random doodle I did in class. Not cool, not cool. So if you are interested in doing an index, don't use a notebook. Oh, another reason why I do recommend it is if you have it already. I am not expecting you to buy new stuff. If you have an ugly notebook already, use it. Another reason why I don't recommend it is because we use notebooks in a linear way. We start at the front, we finish at the back, and we go this way. As you can see, I don't have any tags in here. I could have tags which would help cross-referencing things. I didn't because it's an added task that you put on top of everything, and it's not something that you want to. It's high friction, so it's not something that you want to have in the back of your mind while you're researching, having to go back to other stuff and revise over the whole notebook to see if you have any bit of information regarding that topic. It's just not handy. Another reason why I don't recommend a notebook is because many of us have pretty notebooks, and as I said, that's scary. It's not useful. You're not gonna use it. So don't buy a pretty notebook, please. If you have already a pretty notebook, I recommend you to tape it all over it, all around it, customize it with the ugliest doodle you can make, and use it. But don't buy a pretty notebook. It's not a good idea. A method I have never used but seems kinda handy is taking notes, like just separate notes, and putting them in boxes and organizing them with dividers. That is the original zettelkasten, I think, but I'm not really sure. I will put some images here and there. I know Lady Writer, I think is her name, does it like this. I do highly recommend it if you're an organized person, because it seems very easily to move things around and link one thing with the other and categorize them. So if you're an organized person, I highly recommend it. But if you're not, if you're messy like I am, I don't recommend it, because they're gonna get lost in the way. You will use very different media, not always the same pretty paper. You're also not gonna carry them with you anywhere, so I don't know. I am conflicted about this method. Another common method I see online, it's very popular these days, are the Louis Carmen. I'm gonna call him Luis Carmen because I'm Spanish, and I'm gonna call it Luis Carmen. This is a Luis Carmen. This is a Luis Carmen. This is not a Luis Carmen, but I'm gonna use it as an example. It's basically a pouch where you keep several notebooks. So it's a pouch where you can keep one notebook, and you can keep another notebook, and you can keep another notebook, and you can keep several notebooks, and then you can take them off and reuse it with another notebook. This is cool if you want the index, if you have very distinct categories, like if you have very defined categories, this is really nice because you can keep one notebook for each category and keep them all together in one place, which is the Luis Carmen. I don't recommend it because, first of all, it's super expensive. Most of them are made of leather. I tried to buy one myself and I realized how crazily expensive they are. Not complaining because most of them are handmade, so it's obvious that it's gonna be expensive, but I don't recommend it for that reason. I also don't recommend it because it's not handy in the slightest. It's heavy, it's really heavy, take into account that these are several notebooks put into one place, so don't recommend it for that reason. This is turning out to be a super long video. I'm so sorry, I get excited talking about research. So as I was saying, using a notebook is not really my go-to because you can't easily refer back to things and forth, and it's linear, and I don't like that for research and for a commonplace book, and for analog gardening. Of course, it had to be mentioned, my Filofax. I mention it in every single video. What can I say? I love it. It's useful. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's not of the Filofax brand. It's from, I don't know which brand it is, but it's not a Filofax. Like, it's not from the Filofax brand, but it is basically a Filofax, as you can see. Yeah, you open it. Oh, that was satisfactory. You open it and the first thing you find is this, which is a cover I made with the Choose Life speech from Trainspotting, my pen, which I always keep handy, and a little charm here, which I mean to replace, but I don't want to buy another one. I want to make it myself, so until I don't make it, I won't have one. And then this little postcard my friend gifted me from Oporto. Thing is, a file fax. Why a file fax and not a notebook or a Luis Carmen? I prefer file fax because you can open it, take the page off, close it, move to wherever you want to put it, open it again, and put it back again. So you can organize it in a non-linear way. You can take things from the beginning and put them in the end, which is incredibly interesting when you're taking notes, when you're researching, because you might be researching something in the very beginning of the notebook, then you get sidetracked and write about whatever else, and then you want to refer back to that source, and you in a notebook only can use, like, either you rip the page and paste it back where you are working, or you have no way of connecting them with one another. Filofax, however, can be as pretty as you want it to be. Why? Because if you make an ugly thing and you don't like it, it will never ruin the whole project because you can just take it off. I do keep ugly pages because I don't care about aesthetics all that much, but you can make it pretty because you are not scared of ruining it, because if you ruin something you can just take it out and nobody will ever know. So that's a pro of a filofax. Another pro of a filofax is that, as this Luis Carmen, you can have categories with tags. I have different tags. The cons are that for me it was a little bit hard to find one that wasn't super expensive. This one was a heritage from my mama. I was lucky to have one. Another con is that it's not really all that portable. I carry it everywhere because I have a nice purse. Thank you, babes. But it doesn't weigh much, but it takes up space. So that's a con. And another con, there are no other cons. It's just perfect.
Tu eres perfecta, Tsotso.
It's perfect. I love it. I personally can't think of any other methods aside from the one I use, but if you have a different method, I would be delighted to hear about it. So please either send me an email about it if you're shy, or comment about it down in this video or something, because I am interested in the topic and on learning different methods for learning. Yeah, if you have a different method, please let me know, please. So basically, life is about learning, humanity is about learning. That's why humanities are called humanities, because they create new problems, and that's what we do, create new problems for ourselves and try to solve them. And so, to summarize, questions are not problems, questions are open doors. Humanity is about learning new things. That's why humanities are called humanities. The process of learning does never end. You can learn more through gardening knowledge, which was born from digital gardening. which is picking seeds of information and putting them together to create one rooted system that grows over time. And analog media can be useful for this too. It doesn't have to be digital all the time. Some of the resources I use are small notebooks or a file of facts. I categorize them into little things, and I don't know. Wikipedia is useful. I don't know what else to say. This is a super long video. I've been filming the whole morning. I think I've been filming for like 3 hours or so. This is gonna be insane to edit, but yeah, maybe I film it again. I don't know, I will see. Bye!